Giva Corja, hi everybody. Good evening to you. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And happy Thanksgiving to all of our viewers from the US. I see Lisa from Washington is here, and the Nevada desert, Tyler, Sherry from New York, Aaron is from Bangkok. Great, that's even further afield. So just type in your names and let me know where you're from. Hi, Julia, Adrian from Wyoming, Jamie from Ohio, lots of Americans. So this is how you celebrate Thanksgiving. This is wonderful. And Carl Martin from Norway, wonderful to see you. And from Suffolk, Poland, wow, Norway, Taiwan, Cheshire, Bruges, hi, Roland, and frosty Northampton. Hi, Gunter from Switzerland and Maryland, Watford, and Cynthia from County Clare. Very good. You're all very, very welcome this evening. So we are going back to the UK this evening, and we're going to Bristol. And I'd like to introduce you to my guest this evening, Adrian Rooke. So Adrian, you are very, very welcome to this Fireside Chat.
Thank you, Eimear. Good evening to you. Lovely to be here.
So you are in Bristol, so that's not far from Glastonbury. So I'm sure many of our viewers have never been to the UK or don't know anything about Bristol. So just tell us a little bit about your landscape.
Okay, I'm very blessed. I live in a very beautiful part of the United Kingdom. Bristol as a town is, it goes way back, pre-Saxon, way back to the dawns of time. Not far from me is Cheddar Gorge, where Cheddar Man was found, so that was 40,000 years ago. So it's old land, limestone, and you know, and I love the limestone because you get the best fossils in limestone.
Yes.
I'm also doubly blessed because where I live on the edge of Bristol, it's only 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes in the car, and I'm at Stanton Drew Stone Circle, which is the second largest, actually, stone circle in the United Kingdom, but probably one of the least known. It's got three separate circles and a big long barrow. The long barrow's gone. They've only got the dolmens at the front now. But I'm very blessed to have that in such close proximity. And I have a relationship with those stones that goes back to when I was about 5 or 6. Because my uncle used to own the garage over the road, and so we used to go and visit him on a Sunday afternoon, and then I'd go out to play, and we'd always head across the road and find ourselves in the stone circle climbing over the stones, and it's drawn me back ever since. So I'm very blessed to have that on my doorstep, and of course now, you know, being a member of OBOD in Druidry for many years, the Dabooney Grove, to which I belong, in Bristol, with Ronald and Anna and lots of other people, Liz Cruz, lots of other people that are well known in the order. And for many, many years, we ran rituals out there. Anna and Ronald ran rituals, and then they were very busy and they let it go, and I took over. So I do the solstices and the equinoxes, and a friend of mine does all the fire festivals. So it's been really lovely this year, after the whole strange COVID thing, we got back out there for summer solstice, autumn equinox, and we'll be out there for winter solstice. So it's a blessing to have that. Bristol itself is very cosmopolitan. People love it. They come from all over the world. We've got a historical harbour, lots of the SS Great Britain, fantastic museums. Very culturally, we're just having a massive extension on what used to be the Colston Hall, but now it's been renamed to something else. And you know, so we have lots of music here. It's a source of a lot of bands that start off here. So we have lots of local bands, and so music's a big thing in Bristol. So and history, you know, we've got great universities. So it's a lovely place to live, and it seems to be, you know, within 20 minutes I can be on the coast, if you call it that. It's actually the Bristol Channel, so you know it's a bit murky and a bit muddy, but you know it's still the coast, and another 20 minutes the other way, and I can be over the bridge and in Chepstow, South Wales. All the beautiful hills and vales of that part of Wales down to Monmouthshire. So there's so many things, and like you said, I can be in Glastonbury in 35 minutes. And that pilgrimage up over the hill, I go through the Mendip Hills, which are old hills, and that's lovely. That's really beautiful. So that's a snapshot of Bristol.
I remember the first time driving to Glastonbury. I was going to do a ritual and meditation workshop with Kate and Barry Riley, and Howard, my late husband, and the kids came with me in a camper van. And I remember going over the hill and then up, and then you come down, and then you see the Tor, and you're looking down on this valley, and it was just mind blowing.
That's my favourite view, Eimear, in my life. That's my favourite view. As soon as I come round that bend, and you've got that whole expanse, and I've seen it shrouded in mist. I've seen it in beautiful sunny days. I've seen it covered in snow, but it never fails to make my heart miss a beat.
Absolutely. So I love driving. So if I take my camper over, come over on the ferry, and to have that, and I'm always looking forward to it because I know it's like it's a wonderful doorway, to be able to just go over the hill and there you are. And I know going to a gathering, and it's always just full of, I suppose, excitement and joy and fellowship and companionship, and of course we're missing it. But anyway, let's hope for next summer that we'll be able to do that.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, without a doubt.
So, tell us about you and how you came to Druidry. I don't know how long you're in the order. Much longer than me. Yes, you are much longer than me.
I think it's upwards of 30 years now.
Yeah, that's longer than me.
Yeah, when I joined, there was something like about 200 people worldwide in OBOD, and Philip was still, the tutor for everybody in the Druid grade, and I think there was about 5 tutors: Susan Henslow, Matt McCabe. Matt was my ovate tutor, and now he lives just down the road. So I quite often, we were talking about Stanton Drew, I meet him in the Druid's Arms, and we'll have Druid burger and chips or something. It's not actually made of real Druids. We did chat. But so we meet at the Stones quite often and just chill out, and haven't done it for a while. I'm looking forward to catching up with him again. About me, well, I mean, I'll try and do an abbreviated story, Eimear, but if I go on for too long, just glower up, give me that look that you can do, and then I'll just shut up. How can I say? I was born. I had a lot of ill health when I was a child, and I had gastroenteritis, scarlet fever, lots of things, lots of strange things. I had an experience, and this is only my own experience, and I'm happy to share it. People can make of it what they will. I never really felt like I was fully incarnated or that I was meant to be on this particular planet. And that illness and things didn't help, because I was in hospital in an isolation ward for several months, and it was bizarre. It formulated part of my processes as I grew older and how I viewed the world. So my mum, bless her, blessings, mum in the other world. She said I was born miserable. I don't think I was born miserable. I think I was born scared, and that was my driving force for the first several years of my life. I was very psychic. On a night time, I would go to bed, and all kinds of things would go on. People would come and visit me. There were these little children that would sit on my bed, and I didn't know how to manage this. I was very scared, and then I'd go screaming into my mum's bedroom, my parents' bedroom. And I'd stay in with them unless they made me go back in. And of course, that stuff kind of wanes as you get older. But my solace, I was lucky in the sense that we lived with woods at the back of our house, and so I was there was the standard traditional bullying that went on, and I was the youngest boy in the street, so I got bullied by the older boys, And so I used to take to the woods, and I found this hawthorn tree, which was really powerfully instrumental in formulating my passion and my love for the natural world, because hawthorn trees are normally very prickly and not very easily forgiving if you try and crawl inside of them. But there seemed to be this natural little tunnel which I found inside of this hawthorn tree, and it was like a bell inside. So
Wow.
it was, it was a very strange thing. So I could actually get in there, and I had this whole space like a bell tent, and I made that my home, really. And I would go there and I'd listen to the earth, and put my ear to the earth, and I always felt like I could hear the heartbeat of Mother Earth. I was a weird kid even in those days, because I used to collect all the dead things that I found and take them to this little place and give them a decent burial and make these little crucifixes with lollipop sticks and blah de blah. But so those were my earliest experiences. But I always had a calling to try and find a connection with God.
Yeah.
There was a reoccurring dream I had when I was a kid where this spaceship used to land in the back garden, and the steps would come down, and these people would say, and I was playing in the garden, and they say, "Come on, Aid, sorry about this, we dropped you on the wrong planet." And I'd be legging it up the stairs, and my poor parents, and they'd never done anything wrong, but they were there saying, "Oh, don't go." And I'm like, "Sorry guys, wrong planet, wrong time, catch you in another life," and I'm off. So there was that sense of, and a longing to connect with God. I was fascinated with the concept of God. So I took myself, contrary to my family's experiences, I took myself off to a Pentecostal church. And I was a member of that church for quite a few years, and it was lovely. It was very happy clappy, and it did me. It gave me a sense of community, which I longed for, and identification in a longing to connect with the divine. Of course, as I got older, I started to notice certain anomalies in what people were saying and how they were behaving. And I had this thing one day during Bible studies, and I didn't realize it would cause a storm. I just came out with it. I said, "I think God's a woman." And that really didn't go down very well, but it made sense to me. If we were talking about an omnipotent force that was birthing universes as we were there, then the whole concept of birth and life, is associated, for somewhere in me, it was the divine feminine. And, I was encouraged to do extra Bible studies and never mentioned that again. It wasn't long after that we had a roving preacher in, and he started off with the Catholics. They were going to hell. So, pretty much the whole of Ireland would have been gone. Followed by, let me just, there's a strange thing can you still see me?
I can, yes. I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, there was a weird thing that just appeared on the screen. Yeah, and then he listed everybody that was off to hell: the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Muslims. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's pretty much. One of my best friends at the time was a Hindu boy, and I used to go to tea around his house, and I used to be absolutely fascinated because they had a statue of Ganesh in the porch, and they used to burn incense, and I thought that was really radical. And oh my God, and Shiva in the front room, and they're all off to hell. And then my social circle is suddenly getting smaller and smaller and smaller because everybody's off to hell. And then when he said everybody in the pub trade selling alcohol, they're all off to hell, that was my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, pretty much everybody in my family. And I actually stood up and I said, "This is a load of crap," and I walked out, and I never went back. And that was that. And so my dad had gone into the pub trade then. So throughout my teens, I have to say, I led quite a hedonistic lifestyle. You'd be surprised to hear, Eimear.
I can't imagine, Adrian. I really can't. I'm shocked.
Well, I come from a long line of people that can drink seriously large amounts of alcohol. So it was party on, and we did lots of festivals and fairs and drugs, and and that was my life as a teenager. But in amongst all of that, I never forgot that time in the hawthorn tree. So I would make brief forays into different little spiritual traditions and things, and then be drawn back into the wildness of life. And then when I got to 21, the universe stepped in, and I had a major heart failure.
Wow.
And I ended up on a life support machine in the Bristol Royal Infirmary, and they didn't think I'd survive. I actually overheard the surgeon talking to my dad, and they hadn't closed the door properly. And my dad was demanding to know what the chances were of me surviving this operation. The surgeon said, "You really don't want to know." And my dad insisted, and he said less than 20%.
Wow.
And so I heard that, and that was a real, how can I say, a serious wake up call of my own mortality. And you go through that teenage period where you think you're omnipotent, you'll live forever. You don't relate to death. The odd ancient grandfather might pass away, but you're going to be here forever. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to be here forever. And there was two things at that time. One thing, I was reading Lord of the Rings, and that sustained me. And this nurse used to read it to me at night. It was really beautiful. In those days they had the time. She'd sit there and read me Lord of the Rings at night. And the other thing was, I was reading a book of First World War poets, most of whom never came back.
That's right.
From the war.
Soon. Yeah.
Endless young men that never came back, and just left their words as testimony to their experience. And so I led back thinking about, I might not get out of this. And then something happened. I had the first of many spiritual experiences, because, there was something that just came to me, and it just said, there's no more relevance if you live to 80, 18, or 8 months. The experience is in coming here. And so that was okay. And then during the heart operation, I died several times. And then I had this experience where I watched the operation taking place, and I was able to relate that back to the surgeons.
Wow.
I could tell them what they were talking about, which was innocuous nonsense. And I can remember thinking, well, really, you're talking about the cricket, and you should really be like, here I am, dead on the table, But that's what they do. They're in there for 11 hours. They're not going to be holding this profound energy all the time. They talk about, how's your mum? How's your auntie Flo? And all this stuff. But so I had this out-of-body experience. And I'll share this with you because, it was profound.
Mm-hmm.
I felt for the first time like I was truly free. And I was where I wanted to be. And I had this sense that if I wanted to, with just a thought, I could be anywhere in the universe. And there was this intense sense of awe and peace and just love, just this love. And I said, right then, that's it. I'm not going back. And there was this thin light between me and me, this consciousness, I presume, because it wasn't a physical. And a voice, this gentle voice said, Adrian, it's not your time. You've got things to do. You have to go back. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. And bang, back I was. And of course, I came round in intensive care. And then that was a start of a pilgrimage for me to try and find where I belonged in this life. What was it that I had to come back and do? What was that? And so that was my driving force for the next couple of years. And I joined a Buddhist organization, did lots of chanting. It was wonderful. And then I went and joined a Native American Indian tradition that was working over here. and that was wonderful. And I met lots of lovely people, did lots of sweat lodges, and it was all really lovely. And I did lots of things. But for me, and only for me, it felt like I was at this wonderful party and I was just exiting the party, and I picked up a coat that looked like mine. And so I just threw it over my shoulders. And when I put it on outside, it was 2 sizes too small and it didn't really fit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the way I've worked through, you know, I know what that meant for me. I needed something that was rooted in this land.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there was a sense of loss that came back into me around that time, and I started to drink and take drugs again, and that dominated a large chunk of my 20s. I have to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I've come from a long line of people that can't drink safely, really, and so you know, and I ended up drunk one night. You know the feeling when you wake up one morning and you think, God, I don't know what happened last night, but I know it wasn't good.
Yep.
And I had that feeling, and I thought, well, what did I say? What did I do? Well, I'd actually bought a fruit and vegetable shop.
Okay.
That wasn't my intention, Eimear. I was actually going to go to India, but
How you contrive not to let yourself go anywhere, either off the planet or out of the country.
my dad was so worried about me going to India with my heart problems that his friend was selling his fruit shop. So he invited me round to his pub. You know, we all had a really good drink. And somewhere during the course of the evening, it was decided that, you know, I'd be better off going to Bristol Fruit Market rather than going to Delhi. So that was the end of that, because I used all my money to buy this fruit shop, and I went with it, and that was just, you know. And then not long after that, I got married to my wife, had children, so I had responsibilities to them financially. So I stayed there for a while, but you know, it was never. I knew it was not me; it was what I was doing temporarily until I could do something else. And so this every now and again, I go on this quest again, and then, you know, I get drawn back into the mayhem of my inner life and the chaos of my outer life, and then I had to. When I was a child, I can remember seeing druids on the telly. We had a small black and white telly, and they used to show the summer solstice,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the ancient order of druids with their wimples and their wonderful matching regalia. And even as a kid, I can remember thinking, oh, who are they? And then I started to get this reoccurring dream about druidry, about these druids. And I thought, well, there's something driving me to this. Where do you find druids? And in Bristol, they had the Druid Friendly Society. Well, I didn't realise it's actually a charity which does charitable things. But I went and knocked on the door. I said, "Can you direct me to some druids, please?" And this lady was ever so sweet. She said, "Oh," she said, "there were druids here about 80 years ago." She said, "But then we became a charity." She said, she said, "I honestly don't know where you'd find druids now." And you know, trying to find a druid in those days, it was a bit like the Masons, really. If you didn't know one, you couldn't get in, and I didn't know anybody. And I'll finish with this, because you know what actually happened was I consciously put out there, how can I find these druids? I know they're here, and I know I need to find them. How do I go about it? And a few months later, a lady that used to use my shop, and we used to talk about esoteric ideology and stuff like that. And she was really sweet, and she brought me in a predictions magazine. And you know, I'm not very good with astrology because I'm dyslexic, and the whole thing, it gets so big, you know, different houses and this and that, and my head starts to melt. So you know, I probably wouldn't have read all of it. I would have read some of it, but I wouldn't have read all of it. I was walking out to my office, and another customer came in the shop, and I threw the booklet onto my office table, went back down the shop, served the customer, came back out, And there was a tiny little advert about this big, and it said, "Are you interested in a revival of native English spirituality and druidic practice? If so, contact PO Box 133."
133, Lewis.
And you know what? Sometimes, Eimear, I got a job to remember my children's names these days, but I've never forgot that address.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, because I knew in that moment something profound had happened.
Yeah.
You know, I knew it. I just knew it. And of course, I sent away, and the first set of guares came through, and it said, and what just, you know, I cried because it said, you know, we're really pleased that you've ordered this set of the guares, and you know, and we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you continue, and you want to follow through and go through the whole course. But if at any time your guides, guardians, or your inner world decrees that this is not your path, know that you can leave this and go forth to find your path with all of our love and blessings. And I just thought, nobody had ever said that.
Yeah.
In all the other things I'd done, you know, nobody had ever said that. And I thought, you know, I'm home. And, you know, it felt like, you know, a friend of mine wrote a poem once, and he said it was the most sumptuous of all homecomings. And I felt that, you know, and so I diligently embarked on working the guares with a friend of mine called Stella, who was actually a spiritualist. And she was just doing it to keep me company, I think. And I would babysit on a Thursday night, and my wife would go out with her friends, and so I'd look after my kids. Stella would come round, and we'd have to spend the first hour and a half reflecting on how we'd worked that particular lesson, and then we'd explore the next lesson, ready to put into action for the following week.
Wow.
And that was it. And I also wrote to the order saying, because Stella said she didn't want to continue, she just wanted to do this. And I wrote to the order, they'd never do it now. You get hung, drawn, and quartered. I wrote to the order, said, are there any more druids in my area that I might be able to get in touch with? And they sent me a whole list of people's names.
I know.
And, you know, it was innocent in those days. You just wouldn't have thought. But so I wrote to all of them and got varying negative responses from some. One lady said, I think Philip Cargom's the Antichrist, and you know, I will come round with my priest and save you. And I wrote back saying, thank you very much, but I think I'm going to persist on my path. And so there was just this mad thing. And then months later, there was an advert in Touchdown saying, you know, if you're in OBOD and you live anywhere in the west of England, the one address they forgot to send me was Julie Britton, and she had a grove going. And so I turned up on autumn equinox, and that would have, oh God, 94, something like that. And that was the same night that both Ronald Hutton turned up for the first time, and JJ Howell turned up for the same time. So the three of us all rocked up as baby bards for the first time.
Wonderful.
And it was unbelievable, Eimear. It was just beautiful, and that was the start of my druidry, and I've never felt inclined not to continue to persist with my path, you know. And there's been so many adventures over the years, endless adventures that have been exquisite, you know, and the people I've met have been delightful. So I'm so grateful to that lady that brought in that copy of Predictions magazine.
That's wonderful. Hannah has a question. Does your druidry ground you?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. I think you know, having a problem with alcohol and drugs very much ungrounds you. Carl Jung said that you know, alcoholism and drug addiction is a low-grade spiritual quest. You're trying to connect with the spirit, but you actually connect with the spirit, you know, the spirit of alcohol, and not the real spirit. Yep. And you know, I'm not anti-alcohol at all. I think alcohol's wonderful for those that can use it safely. But for me, it takes me off down a blind alley. So, it's been many years since I drank. I stopped drinking just before I came into Druidry, and Druidry has been my anchor, and I work it. And perhaps in the early days when I was still in the fruit shop, I would go to my fruit shop every morning, and I would pull up, and before I did anything else, I would go into the shop. I'd cast a circle. I'd bless it with water and fire, and then I'd call in the 4 time actions, and I'd sit in the middle of the circle for 20 minutes. And it was lovely. I mean, it was a really good spiritual practice. And maybe I should do that again, because, I don't do, my Druidry isn't, I have to be doing that all the time. My Druidry now, I mean, I love my garden. I've got a stone circle in my garden. I think my Druidry is permeated into me now, and it is part of everything I am and everything I do. So I'm blessed with that, and I managed to get out of the fruit shop, and I had it up for sale for 2 years, Eimear, and nobody. I mean, there'd been a whole financial crash, and nobody was buying small shops, and Susan Jones. Some people will remember Susan Jones. She used to be the tutor coordinator, and beautiful, beautiful lady. And she said to me one night at the Druid Grove, she said, "Well, if you want to get out of the shop," she said, "perhaps you need to do a ritual, and thank the shop for everything it's done. Ask it to let you go." And I thought, and to be honest, I was a little bit scared of Susan, because part of me thought, oh yeah, if it was only that simple. But the other part of me said, oh yes, Susan, I'll give that a go. People pleasing. And so I was thinking, shall I? But the next morning I rocked up with some incense and some water, and I did a whole ceremony and said, look, thank you. You've provided, a source of income for my family to grow, and for me to have this period of time to stabilize myself, and now I need to move on. I need to be doing something else. I mean, you couldn't make these things up, because the very next day I went to the fruit market, and this guy who'd been serving me with flowers and stuff for years came up to me and he said, "Is your shop still up for sale, Aid?" And I said, "Oh, it is, Bob." He said, "Well, I don't actually want to buy it." He said, "But I'd like to lease it off of you for 5 years. I've just been made redundant." So within 10 days, I was out of the shop after that ritual.
Beautiful.
And that was when, I went back to, I did lots of things then. I was still involved with the spiritualist church, and I trained as a healer. I did Reiki. I did Indian head massage diplomas and lots of other things. All holistic stuff. I loved all that, messing with potions, like aromatherapy mixed in the oils and all that. I loved it. So I did that, and I did that for a couple of years. And then, my hands collapsed. I had carpal tunnel in both hands. So I had to move away from that. But at the same time, I'd embarked on re-educating myself, and I was going back to college and university, and I ended up studying counselling, Rogerian person-centered therapy, and I ended up going to Bristol University, getting my qualifications, and subsequently I spent the last 20 years, up until 6 years ago when my heart collapsed again. I spent 20 years initially working as a therapist in a rehab, and then becoming the head of the primary care department. And then my heart failed, and so I came out of that, and now I've got a little therapy room down just 10 yards from my door here. And I've got this lovely little therapy room which doubles as an Airbnb on weekends. It always amazes me that people want to sleep in it, but they do. And so I, and everything else has come from Druidry, in the sense that, you know, I suppose I'm a ritualist now. I do weddings, funerals, baby blessings. I've got a baby naming ceremony to do next weekend. So there's been a lot of change, and you know, and I've embraced it. It's been, you know, it's been nothing short of a miraculous journey, because by rights, you know, when I had my first heart, they told me I wouldn't live till I was 30 if I didn't do certain things, and you know, this year I'll be 64. So, and that amazes me. I think, bloody hell, you know, and every time I see my heart specialist, he goes, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
Oh, it's wonderful. John Maddox says, respect to your sober time. I'm 14 years sober and still waiting for life to improve. I think Druidry could well be one of the pieces that's been missing. I'm really looking forward to hopefully starting the course soon. John, I wish you well, and hopefully that if you do decide to join and do the course, that will be like the missing piece for you.
Yeah, certainly was for me.
I think it's been for many. I you know, so many people say how important it has been.
Yeah.
My guest last week, Gail Ellis, she was talking about, because she was diagnosed with cancer in 2021, breast cancer, and how her Druidry helped her. And even before that, getting rid of a mask that she'd hidden behind for so many years, it allowed her, and when, you know, everything fell around her life during the ovate grade, and that sustained her to move on. And also the practices, you know, the meditative practices helped her right through her journey with cancer.
Yeah.
You know, just there are too many examples for me not, and I know it in my own life, how it sustained me and still continues to sustain me. Not to know that, you know, that it's that
you know, 6 years ago when my heart failed again, Eimear, you know, my heart specialist, he fixed a date for the operation, and he did all the pre-operation tests, and then he said, he contacted me and said, look, I'm cancelling the operation. I can't get you through this. Yeah, I just can't get you through it. You know, it will be tantamount to me murdering you, because you won't survive. And he said, I want you to just take this medication and we'll see how we go. And, you know, I had 6 weeks. He was a lovely man. I had 6 weeks of the medication, and he gave me his phone number, and I phoned him up. And I said, do you know, Mr. Yateman, I can't live like this. You know, I either live fully in this world, in this incarnation, or I'm all right to exit it. You know, and you know, it's not in your hands, it's in the hands of the gods. You know, the divine mystery. And if I'm meant to come through this operation, I will do. And if I'm not, then that's not your fault. But I don't want to live like this. Do the operation. And he did. And he did the operation, bless him. And you know what? Kieran Sibley, some people will know Kieran.
Yeah.
Very naughty, because I was being very quiet about this whole thing. And then he blasted it out over the internet and said, Adrian's having his operation at such and such a time, you know, send him some love and blessings. And you know what? You know, people all around the world in OBOD, Australia, New Zealand, America, the continent, they all had little ceremonies and rituals for me at that time. And, you know, I know that that was what made the difference. And one guy, a Belgian chap, I shan't name him, he might be embarrassed, but, you know, he was in Thailand, and he came to a workshop that I did with JJ. And something, I felt moved to give him a swan's feather, and he cried. His father had died. And the swan's feather, his father used to tell him stories of swans. And so it was a message from his dad. And he was in Thailand, and he went to a Buddhist monastery and said, you know, at such and such a time, a friend of mine's having an operation. You know, and this monk said, is he a good man? And he said, he's a very good man. He said, well, come back in 45 minutes. And so he went back in 45 minutes, and this monk rang a bell, and all these 12 monks or so came down, and they all sat in a circle, and I've got it on my altar, this little Buddha, and they covered the heart with gold leaf, and they chanted for my well-being. you know, and I felt all of that, you know, I felt all of that, you know, and that was the difference for me between, you know, not making it and making it, was all that love and that beautiful energy coming from all around the world. So, you know, we are all, you know, it's not just an order. We're, even people we don't know, we're intrinsically connected by a love and a reverence for nature, but also a longing for, you know, human beings to be able to manifest their best in this life.
That's right. And I remember that time. I remember seeing it on Facebook. And Sal from Ulster says, during that time of your health failure, many of us held you so very strong. This is before you spoke. She'd written this earlier. So very strong in our powerful intentions each day during your recovery, always connecting with you in humble spirit.
Thank you. Yeah, bless you.
And then I think you may have already spoken. You may have already answered this. Hannah says, do you think Druidry helps one come to terms with one's own mortality?
Well, it certainly had. Well, my own life experiences helped me connect to my own mortality. You know, I personally have had a variety of different experiences that have showed me that this is just part of an ongoing journey. You know, I've got no doubt whatsoever that we are, you know, we're multifaceted beings that, you know, when these atoms decide to disseminate and become something else, there's a part of us, the consciousness that continues. You know, I've also studied hypnotherapy and you know, I've had some regression hypnotherapy and, you know, we've done this before and maybe we'll do it again. But I have no doubt that, you know, this is just a small, tiny little part of an eternal expanding journey. There's a lovely poem that I've got that I might read if
Yes, please do. That would be lovely.
it's if I can find it on this desk.
Is it one of your own?
No, this was I don't write that many poems. I wrote one for Stanton Drew well, I do write poems, but not for public consumption. But I wrote one about Stanton Drew a couple of years ago. I might read that if you want me to. But this is called My Law by Tieni Ranaperi, and I collect lovely spiritual verse. It's been part of my job because, you know, I worked as a 12-step therapist, which, you know, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Encourage people to find their own connection to a higher power, whatever that higher power is, you know, and they, you know, it's a higher power of your own understanding. But, you know, I found this, and this, I think this is beautiful. This is attributed to Amari. The sun may be clouded, yet ever the sun will sweep on its course till the cycle is run. And when into chaos the system is hurled, again shall the builder reshape a new world. Your path may be clouded, uncertain your goal. Move on, for your orbit is fixed to your soul. And though it may lead into darkness of night, the torch of the builder shall give it new light. You were, you will be, know this while you are. Your spirit has travelled both long and afar. It came from the source, to the source it returns. The spark which was lighted eternally burns. It slept in a jewel, it slept in a wave, it's roamed in the forest, it's rose from the grave. It's took on strange garbs for long eons of years, and now in the soul of yourself it appears. From body to body your spirit speeds on, it seeks a new form when the old one has gone, and the form that it finds is the fabric you wrought on the loom of the mind from the fibre of thought. As dew is drawn upwards in rain to descend, your thoughts drift away and in destiny blend. You cannot escape them, for petty or great, or evil or noble, they fashion your fate. Somewhere on some planet, sometime and somehow, your life will reflect your thoughts of you now. My law is unerring, no blood can atone. The structure you build, you will live in alone. From cycle to cycle, through time and through space, your lives with your longings will ever keep pace. And all that you ask for and all you desire must come at your bidding as flames out of fire. Once list to that voice, and all tumult is done, your life is the life of the infinite one. In the hurrying race, you are conscious of pause with love for the purpose and love for the cause. You are your own devil, you are your own God. You fashion the past that your footsteps have trod, and no one can save you from error or sin until you have hearkened to your spirit within.
Beautiful.
I love that. I just love that.
And I suppose, you know, for me, the one thing is that last line, until you hearken to the spirit within.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. Our inner world, and that's encouraged, you know, within the Gwers, focusing on your inner grove, all of that, and how important that is. And I suppose one of the biggest lessons I've learned is around listening to my own inner spirit, my own inner voice. Very, very important. It's beautiful.
And sometimes that can be challenging, Eimear, can't it? Because, you know, one of your listeners said just now that in the ovate grove, her life collapsed. And, you know, I had a catastrophic collapse of my life in the ovate grove. One day on a ritual, a whole bunch of us, I think it must have been Samhain or around that time, and we all decided to go into the underworld and give our lives over for 6 months to, you know, to the Lord of the Western Isles, Tiernan Oak, and
Yeah.
and it was, you know, be careful what you ask for, really, when you play with magic, because all three of us ended up with our marriages collapsing, and you know, and there was many a consolatory moment where we were sharing our woes about, you know, the way our lives had suddenly changed. But, you know, I do believe, and I believed then that, you know, sometimes, you know, out of pain, you know, the greatest leaps forward along spiritual lines can occur, as long as you keep a steady course and
Yeah.
keep true to your beliefs. And, you know, I look back on that now, and it was all meant to be. You know, there was, you know, if it hadn't have happened, then a whole wealth of experiences that were allowed to manifest because of going through that pain and that separation wouldn't have happened. And you know, yeah, you know, I reflect back on it now with wisdom. At the time, it was a strange experience.
It's John Maddox says, a few of those lines gave me goosebumps, reminded me of my favorite Blake quote, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. This is lovely. And hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Um, it, Thank you, John, for that. I'm just wondering, you know, you're talking about all the experiences. Do you have any regrets? I mean, would you change anything when you look back now and see where you are now?
So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because part of the part of my spiritual practice is to, as best I can, live in the moment, live in
Mm-hmm.
the here and now. I can reflect back on the past, but, you know, the past is the past, and no amount of going there is going to change the past for me in my own mind. And also, if I live in today, then, you know, I on a daily basis, I hand my will in my life over to the care of the goddess in my life, and then what comes from that, I ask only for her knowledge for me and the power to carry that out. So anything that comes my way, you know, has to be meant to be, because, you know, I've handed my life over. So, and I believe this fully, you know, that there's a divine influence in my life now as a consequence of what I've done, really, the work I've put in, because nobody gets anything for nothing. You know, a lot of people want change and they want magic to occur in their lives, and I get it. And I did that for years, and, you know, and then I just pour myself the next pint and think, well, I'll make the magic happen tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never comes. It's, you know, today. You know, it's today, and if I had a TARDIS, of course I would go back and change some of the consequences. You know, my drinking and drug taking at times was, and it was never intentional, but there was always collateral fallout to the people that I loved. You know, my mother, for one, was forever in a constant state of abject terror that, you know, I was going to be found dead somewhere, because,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, that was a possibility. You know, I woke up one day in some lady's front garden, and I thought I was dead, because I could hear this faint muffled voice, and it was, you know, And I tried to move and I couldn't move, and I tried to open my eyes and I couldn't open, and then I managed to move one hand and I got it up to my eye and I pulled it and I felt this tear, and then I pulled the other one, and then I managed to drag myself up, and I realized that, you know, the frost had settled over me. I'd been coming back from a nightclub, fell through a garden fence, a hedge, led on a lawn, and the last thing I could remember was thinking, what a beautiful night. Look at the stars. Aren't they wonderful tonight? Fell asleep on a lawn and the frost sat over me.
Wow.
And she said that this lady said, there's a cup of tea on my lawn, good old Bristol girl. Cup of tea, there's a cup of tea there for you, and then bugger off. But when I managed to crawl over and I got this cup of tea, and then the cold hit me and I started to shake, and I looked back and there was a perfect green imprint of my body on this white frosted lawn. You know, I mean, madness. I mean, you know, I should have died. You know, I should have died. But, you know, so yeah, I would change things. I would change quite a few things. I can't change those things, so I've come to terms with them, and they don't cause me any angst or grief. I was able to. My mother was really interested in Druidry in the years before she died. She thought it was fabulous, and you know, and she wrote a poem on my 9th sober birthday, and it was just wonderful. And she said in this poem, she said, what a privilege and a pleasure it was to be able to look into my eyes and see an adult member of the human race and not a scared, dysfunctional child.
Wow. That's so,
yeah.
that is just beautiful. Gabriella says, I find it interesting that all the magicians I've seen in the fireside chats, have a very specific type of energy. I wonder if it's from the practice or a certain type of people are drawn to magic. Because you're drawn to magic, yes?
I am drawn to magic, yeah. But there are many different kinds of magic. You know, and what is magic? You know, there's ceremonial magic. I have done lots of ritual over the years. Of course I have. And I've had some incredible experiences that you cannot consciously or intellectually define, because they defy normal experience and expression. So they were magical events.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to put myself in the place for that to happen and do the groundwork and sow the seeds for that to flower and blossom and for those events to take place. And I've worked really hard on my Druidry over the years, and I, not in the sense that I've wanted to get anywhere, but when I started on the Bardic course, I was thirsty for the next lesson and then the next lesson, and you know, and then I went back through it all again, and you know, the Druid Grove, and I've always been willing to do service in the order. You know, I was a tutor for many years, and then, you know, maybe a long time ago now, some 15, 20 years, I was asked to be the press liaison officer.
And you still
are? And I still am, until you sack me, Eimear.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
No, I'm not saying you have, but you might want to.
No, absolutely not.
But you know, it's been a joy, and you know, I mean, I was so shy when I came round. Ronald has this thing. Ronald Hutton says the first time he saw me, I had this pristine little white robe with a blue tabard and this really short hair, and he said it was cut like an Iona monk. And he said he had this ideal of these Iona monks, and he saw me by the fire. Actually, I was by the fire because I was so terrified. I didn't think I had anything to say to anyone, and I was a bag of nerves, really. And partly my personality and my confidence has been encouraged through people in this order. Ronald Hutton, Philip, asking me to do things that drew me out of my comfort zone and put me
like
in a
what?
position.
What? Like what happened?
One of the first things, I mean, it's my life's always surrounded by a certain amount of chaos, so I must be invoking that. But Ronald asked me to talk to the Students' Union about paganism at Bristol University, and you know, I never say no to Ronald, because you know, I adore him. he's so wonderful, but he's like, you know, I have to, he's like my dad, really. I have to please Ronald. And, you know, he's been an inspiration and the greatest teacher, actually. But he said to me about doing this thing, and I said yes, then worried about it incessantly for weeks until the date came round. And because I overcompensated, I got this whole flip chart presentation, and I'd written down all the historical references to Druidry, pre-Roman, ancient Greek, going right the way through the Roman era to the 1700s when the resurrection of Druidry came round by, you know, various Christian priests. I had the lists of, and I had all this out on these flip charts, and I got to the Students' Union, and they were all there, all the students. I thought, oh my God, I've got to go to the loo. So off I went with my flip chart under my arm to the loo, came out of the bloody loo, left the flip chart behind, went upstairs, realised I hadn't had the flip chart, went back downstairs. In the meantime, the janitor had gone in to make sure the toilets were all okay, picked up the flip chart and cleared off with it, not knowing what it was. And I'm up there, and this endless hours of preparation was gone. And I said to, and Ronald was there, and he said, Adrian, you know this stuff. Speak from your heart. Speak from your heart. And that's what I did. I just spoke from my heart about what Druidry had given me to that point, and, you know, the 7 gifts of Druidry, and, you know, how Druidry encourages us to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And it was lovely. And that was a huge confidence lift. And then Philip asked me not long after that to do an opening ceremony in Islington for a band called Imaginary Kingdom. And, and it was, they were an Australian band, Tim Finn. I think they were quite famous in a different band, and he was starting this other band. And anyway, they started out in Australia, and they'd had an Aboriginal blessing, and then they'd gone to New Zealand, had a Maori blessing, then they'd been to the States and had a Native American, and they wanted a Druid blessing on stage.
Wow.
So again, Philip said, Adrian, would you like to do something for me? You know, you come to London and spend a day or two with me, and I just want you to open this little thing with a verse or two. And the bugger, he never told me there was about 2,000 people there. And you know, I'm out the back with the rest of the audience, and I've got my little script, and I was absolutely terrified. And it was really funny, really, because you know, I've gone out on stage, and the band behind were blacked out, and I had to call in the 4 directions, and then I had to call in the spirit of this guy's mum, and then right at this particular point, the lights came on, and I disappeared in a puff of smoke, and the band just and they were off, and I did it. And it was little things like that that helped my confidence grow. And what was funny afterwards, what made that, and Philip will kill me for this, but he disappeared. I couldn't find him or Steph or the girls. So I'm looking around, wandering around, and I found them upstairs, and Philip was led on a table. And it looked like Steph was doing some surgical operation on his head. And it was the strangest thing. And I thought, oh my God, what's going on? And I said, what's up, Steph? She said, Philip's got his, she said he put in earplugs because he doesn't like loud music, and it's gone in too far, and I'm trying to pull it out. So she had a pair of tweezers pulling out his earplug. And I thought, this is about as surreal as it gets, like, you know. But I had a lovely weekend with Philip, and then my confidence grew again, and you know, and little things like various people. JJ has been a great influence in my life. You know, he's been a dear, close friend, and you know, he's like a soul brother, and you know, lots and not too many people to name. You know, if you start naming people, then you leave people out. But you know, the people I've met in Druidry have been delightful, and they've all added to my life experience, all of them.
Oh, and I so understand that. I mean, it's for me, it was like a second family, and you know, being an Irish Druid, going over to Britain, and I know it's an international order, but I suppose in my earlier connections with the order was through just going to England, and obviously it's expanded since, and then I've discovered that Druidry OBOD has different faces depending where you are.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like there's not quite different dialects of Druidry if you were thinking about it. It's just it has a different. The flavors are different, or the textures are different depending on where they are, and depending on the climate, and depending on the language through which it's expressed.
Yeah, definitely, and that's another blessing that's been in my life, because many years ago, through Taya Worthington and her creation of the Wheel of Anu, and that was a kind of an experiential way of working the wheel of your own life, split into workshops. And I ended up going to places like going to Italy to run a series of workshops. I went to Holland to run a series of workshops. I've been to Belgium running workshops and camps, and JJ and I ran a camp on an Italian mountainside, and that was madness. You know, I'd signed myself out of hospital. I'd had a heart episode the day before, and the guy said, well, we're going to keep you in for a week for observation. And I said, well, you can't. I said, I'm running a workshop in Italy. And he said, well, where is it? I said, well, it's in a retreat center. He said, don't go putting yourself under any stress. He said, because we don't quite know what's caused this. And so I told JJ, and we're on the plane over to Italy. And then Hagal and the gang picked us up, and they just drove us to this mountain, right up this mountain. We were like 7,000 feet above sea level or something. And then all these tents came. We thought we were in a retreat center. And then all these tents came out the back of this van. We had to walk 3-4 miles over this mountain to this valley, pitch these tents, and the wind and the rain, and it was howling. And I'll never forget, for the rest of my life, JJ doing a guided visualization, me banging the drum, pouring down with rain, 25 Italian druids hiding under a tarpaulin. You know, that's all they had. There was no cover. They were all led under a tarpaulin. Even the central fire got blew about 30 feet away. And it was like, and they all disappeared off into their little tents. And JJ and I had a tent together, and we were led in bed. And I said to him, I said, JJ, if my heart specialist could see me now. And we were absolutely cracking up. We were crying with laughter. And JJ said, well, it can't get any worse than this, can it? And then the tent snapped and it fell on top of us. but you know what? The next morning, everybody was so forlorn, because nobody expected it to be as rough as this, except for Hagal, who planned it all. And and it was. And then I said to JJ, "What are we going to do?" And everybody's looking shell shocked. And I said, "Well, let's do the dance of life, and we'll just start from there, and we'll see what we can do." And we started doing the dance of life, and we said, come on, guys, really get involved here. We're druids. We'll call out the sun. You know, the sun's going to shine on us because we're druids.
It is Italy.
And it was literally pouring with rain at the time. And, it was one of those moments. It was priceless because, the sun came out. And it came out in a blaze of glory. And we had some wonderful days on that mountain, and it was just exquisite. So, how would I have experienced that if I'd never discovered OBOD?
Just thinking of all the risks you've taken, when your surgeon didn't want to give you do that surgery because he was afraid you wouldn't make it, and then giving some meds to see, and then you go, I don't want to live my life, being frightened and just taking these pills just to keep you ticking over, and then you take the risk and have the surgery, and then you go on this mad trip up the mountain. So there's loads of reaction to your to your story, Adrian.
I've always believed that life has to be lived, and it's no point in not living it. And 3 weeks after my last heart operation, I came to the I'm not sure I think it was the winter solstice gathering, and I had to be propped up in bed at night because they hadn't taken all the stitches out. But I was determined to get there. Call me stupid, but that was the best healing I get, is to be with people that I love and that I vibrate on the same level with, that are so life enhancing and healing for me. Why would I not want to be there? Why would I not want to do these things? And I've always said now, I mean, one day something's going to take me out, but I hope it's in the middle of a ritual or up a bloody mountain somewhere, rather than, some innocuous kind of quietly slipping away in some bed. I'd far rather be doing some mad ritual or just keel over.
So just on the record, just Cindy, I want to come back to this. Cindy says there's living in parentheses, and then there's Adrian's level. Absolutely. And so if you die on top of a mountain, would you leave you there, or we carry you down the mountain?
I prefer to be left there. I know it's not very au fait in this day and age, but I do believe, the sky burials are the best way forward. Give yourself back to nature. That said, I've got I'm not sure if it's a past life thing or whether it's because I've had so many MRI scans and, other experiences. I don't like the thought of being buried. And
okay.
Yet, that would probably be the obvious way to utilize. I was reading something today. This guy's developed these coffins in Holland that turn you into a big giant mushroom spore.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that sounds pretty damn good. I should do some research on that.
And you'd be the first big magic mushroom.
What a way to go.
Okay, yeah. What do you want to come back as a magic mushroom? Anne Beers says, Adrian, you're exactly how I imagined Gandalf when I first read Lord of the Rings, age 13. A magician indeed, with the most wonderful energy. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that's just you don't want a Viking funeral. Gabrielle is suggesting that.
My boys offered to try and rig that up with a rowing boat down the Avon Gorge, which is a little river runs under the Bristol Suspension Bridge. But I don't know if I could find anybody that could fire a flaming arrow on target. So it might be a bit of a challenge, that one.
Someone with a very steady hand. Oh, that is absolutely wonderful. So, often I ask people about ancestors and how do you see in terms of how do you honor the ancestors? I suppose there's your ancestors and you as an ancestor. I suppose there's two parts to that.
Well, I live surrounded by all my ritual stuff. I live in a garage at the end of my garden, so everything's in close proximity. We are tomorrow's ancestors, the future of yesterday. And what we are in the here and now goes rippling out always, goes rippling out always. I am tomorrow's ancestors, the future of yesterday. And what I am in the here and now goes rippling out always, goes rippling out always.
That's beautiful.
We're all ancestors, maybe I'll be an ancestor in this particular image, but I'll be something else in a different guise. I do believe that there's a poem by a guy called Censure the Druid, and it's lovely, and I've used it in some of my workshops. Where he says, "How old are you? How old are you really? Do you really know how old you are? Your body is constructed of the elements of exploding stars. You are timeless. You come from the dawn of time and maybe even before." And I love that. I never forget that. And the waters in our bodies, 70% water. There's no water coming in from outer space. The only water there's ever been is what's here. So it's been through the bodies of dinosaurs, it's been through the bodies of woolly mammoths, it's been through the bodies of endless other people, and now in the bodies of us, it's here. And if we believe, science and spirituality are coming together in a way that is never done before, which I think is incredible for the hope for the future of mankind, and and water has memory. So all those water molecules in our bodies has all the memory of all the other bodies that it's been in, and floating down the River Nile past the pyramids, or floating down the River Avon, perhaps with my little burning boat floating along, with me in it or whatever. But we are miraculous creatures, and I remind myself of that on a daily basis. And we can't always be spiritually uplifted, and sometimes life's tough. Life is tough for everybody, and I've got a lot going on for me again at the moment, health wise, and I have to make some decisions on how I'm going to manage my own future, and I'm here through the grace of the gods, but I'm trying to simplify my life now, so I'm not doing so much therapy. What I'm drawn to do is more ritual, more celebrancy, more joy spreading, and really just getting in my car and going on pilgrimages, meeting up with beautiful people in beautiful places. I mean, some of those times we've come to your house, Eimear, it's been just a delight, isn't it? And that in itself, that's a whole story, isn't it? Bloody the last of the summer wine goes to Ireland, really. Yeah, the oldest druids in town.
For what is it? Matt called you geezers. Was it old geezers? Is it four in a van coming to work in my garden? And it has just been wonderful, the work you've done. And I have a vision of you sweeping with Bodger all the muck and rubbish out of my courtyard, which is now a sitting area. It has been gentrified.
Oh, wonderful.
So I look forward to see it, to be able to sit there.
I was going to say, as soon as all this lockdown stuff's over, we're coming anyway, whether you invite us or not. It's already planned. I've already had the Bodger on the phone saying, when are we going?
Brilliant. Yeah, it was just, yes, because it's like, it's been lovely for me, because to take people, OBOD members from overseas to visit sacred sites, and there are just and so many around, and it's just been beautiful.
That day we went to see the real Tara.
In Carnahalla, yes.
Yeah. What a day that was, and that guy leaping out of the bushes, and then we couldn't find him before, and then all of a sudden he's appeared, and then we went on this magical mystery tour of drinking this beautiful water with silver in it, and go into these ancient places with god tombs, and I mean, who wouldn't want that kind of experience, really?
Absolutely, just brilliant. Oh, so what are you grateful for?
Oh, how many days have you got? I'm grateful for everything.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that from my heart, I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for all the experiences I've had, what I've perceived to be bad and what I've perceived to be good, because each and every one of them has been a living experience, and an opportunity to grow and to just learn to be more grateful. Part of my whole practice is founded on gratitude.
Yep.
And I do believe that fundamentally, if we don't do anything else but we practice an attitude of gratitude, then that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more grateful I am, the more wonderful things I have in my life to be grateful for. And I took my grandson, and he's 13 now, and I took him to his first a White Horse camp this year, which used to be the OBOD camps, but they're now called White Horse camps, but it's all OBOD members pretty much. And it was the Samhain camp, and he had such a wonderful time. And 13 years ago, just over 13 years ago, he was born a pound and a bit, and he spent the first 3 months of his life in an incubator, and that was my first grandson. I can remember going, and I couldn't touch him. I just gaze at him, you know, through this little plastic screen, and just willing life into him, you know. And I swore at that time that, you know, if he lived and he came through it, you know, I tried to be the best I could be in his life. And, you know, and he absolutely adores me. And he comes down here and we do sacred singing together, and, you know, singing away, you know. And a couple of years ago, he came to Stanton Drew for a solstice ceremony, and I was in the middle saying something reasonably profound, I presume.
Of course.
And then I felt this tugging on my side, and he'd actually got away from his dad, and because he doesn't walk very well. He can walk. He wasn't supposed to walk at all, and we raised nearly £70,000 for this operation for him that severed his spine and reattached different nerves, and so he can walk. In fact, we raised double the amount, so we paid for another little boy to have the same operation.
Wonderful.
And then he was in a sarcophagus for 8 weeks, not allowed to move, and his bravery. And not once have I ever heard that boy say, "Grampy, why can't I play football?" You know, he's never said that. And he came out into that circle, and I felt this tug, and then I looked down and I said, "Yeah, Jack, what do you want?" And he said, "Grampy, sing Rainbow Warrior." And I said, "We can't sing Rainbow Warrior. That's not in the script." And of course, everybody in the circle said,
"Sing Rainbow Warrior."
"For God's sake, sing bloody Rainbow Warrior." So I had him on my shoulders, and we were singing Rainbow Warrior.
Can you sing it? I don't know it.
Hey ho. No, that's the wrong one. I was born on the seventh wave. Hey ho. And my path is a rainbow path. Hey ho, hey ho. From the stars to the earth I come. Hey ho, a rainbow warrior. I am a rainbow warrior. I am. And that was his favourite. And he's changed that now. He's got other favourites. But yeah, we sang that, and then, you know, at the end, I had him on my shoulders, and we led a circle round. JJ led this circle round of people weaving in, and he was right in the middle on my shoulders, and we were singing, "Round and round we go, we hold each other's hands. Round and round we go, we hold each other's hands. Weave our lives in a circle. Our love is strong and the dance goes on. Our love is strong and the dance goes on." And that's really, what more do you need in life? You know, all of us together, our love is strong and the dance goes on.
I love that chant. Absolutely love that chant.
Yeah.
Right. Ferdiot, who was a guest, Ferdiot McGowan, who was, I guess, in September, I think. Listening to you both giggling away reminds me of all the laughter and joy we missed with the gatherings. This fellowship is definitely one of the blessings of Druidry and OBOD. I couldn't agree with you more, Ferdiot. And I suppose I don't often laugh, like giggle at this on the screen. Usually the giggling happens, you know, when you're in. Well, my daughter used to say, when you're in real together, and it's just lovely to have.
I've seen you giggle when we've all been in your kitchen trying to construct a mill. Me, the Bodger, Arthur.
Oh,
good times. A lifetime of good memories, you know, and you know, I'm grateful for that. You asked me what I was grateful for. I'm grateful for the people that the universe puts into my life. I'm grateful for my family. I love dearly, and they love me. I'm grateful for the opportunity to wake up in the morning. You know, each day I wake up, I connect, and I say thank you for the opportunity of another day. And I'm grateful. You know, you had Joe on a while ago, and you know, I'm grateful to have Joe in my life as well, and you know, she's been amazing. Like, you know, if you saw the amount of herbs I take on a daily basis, you'd think I was a rhinoceros or something. Like, you know, it's a bag full of bloody herbs. Like, you know, it takes me about half an hour to go through them or take them. But you know, that's keeping me going. You know, natural herbs, natural
Yeah.
plants. You know, that keeps me going. You know, my carving, I love carving. I carve these little owens incessantly. I don't know why. I started carving those when I was in the Bardic grade, and I never stopped. Um, you know, I'm grateful for living. I'm grateful for living here, and I don't think, you know, we always reflect on how difficult it is for people living in lots of other parts of the world. You know, their kind of their story, their narrative's different to ours, and it's harsh. And I'm aware that,
Yep.
you know, we're not all blessed to live in a green and pleasant land. So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Philip, love him to bits,
Oh, yes.
for his vision, and and actually doing something that probably at the time sounded quite insane, really. You know, let's start a druid order. Oh yeah, well one day there'll be nearly 30,000 people. You know, Philip said to me he thought it might be interesting to, you know, perhaps 100 people, maybe 200 people, and here it is now. And you know, and you know, I went to Sweden with Philip a couple of years ago to the European convention over there, and
Mhm.
what an adventure that was! How amazing, you know, we're rocking around Sweden together and just having a lovely time. And you know, I've been very blessed, and you know, not everybody gets those chances, and you can't all join OBOD and suddenly go onto a mountain in Italy. But that's just been my story. I suppose I've made it happen.
I haven't been to Scandinavia, but when you were in Sweden, JJ and Matt and Fleur and I were in Germany at the German gathering. And
Yeah,
remember, we had there was a ritual going on in each of the places,
that's
and
right.
it
Yeah.
was quite beautiful. So, yeah, Susan Jones is here, and she said she's grateful to you too.
Oh,
And
bless you, Susan.
Roland from Belgium says, I'm grateful to knowing you, Adrian, and Eimear and Druid family. Absolutely. So is so it's just Salve says Adrian's infectious, jovial nature is intoxicating. So
Oh, bless.
and Jules says this is interesting. I don't know if she deliberately wrote this. It's been a wonderful, uplifting firestorm chat.
I'll settle for that.
Just brilliant. Just
Yeah, love to Roland, and you know, he was the guy that got me the little Buddha with the gold heart. So, you know, I'm grateful to him for that, and I'm grateful to Susan for all the teachings, and for the lessons in endless service that she did during those years that she was,
oh,
uh,
absolutely.
you know, wonderful example of, you know, service in the order. You know, just great.
It strikes me that I want to come back to somebody has a question about the spiritual practice of carving, but I want to come back just when you say that the amazing people who have given to the order, it's incredible, and how people do amazing things. And it's not through, oh, okay, I'm in a position of power, or you're in a position of power, or somebody else in a position of power. It's not about that. It's about people take on roles of responsibility
Yeah,
who are asked and have incredible generosity to give to the order and how important it is. And sometimes I've come across, you know, volunteers and other organizations who may not have the same motivation to do things, but I don't know what it is about OBOT that when people take on a task, they do it.
yeah,
You know, that it's something that's really, really important, that they have some imperative to carry out this task, whatever it is, and to give in such a generous way and in
yeah,
such a conscientious way. And long may it continue. It is just beautiful. And there are so many people, you know, people who've taken turns writing the rituals for the gatherings. The, you know, Sean did the druids, the seed groups, and groves, and now Paul and Pat too.
Loads, don't they? Everybody does.
I mean, you think of so many people doing, you know, Lorraine and Marion and Fee and Paddy and Gabby and Carol. So many people, you know, writing rituals for the gatherings, just doing it for the love of it, and we're just, and Penny, you know, and Arthur, and I have to mention Stephanie, Philip, and Dave as well. But you know what I mean. But it's ordinary people who just take on a task and do it, and people who manage the Facebook pages, the media stuff. That just, it's wonderful. And I've left out loads of people, mentors even. You know, people who really love that and take that on. And offer so much with that. You know.
Yeah, and it's the hidden work, isn't it? All those endless people supporting other people, going through the grass, giving of their time, and I think in some ways it's the most sublime form of enchantment. Yes. Because we become enchanted by this opportunity to serve something so wonderfully profound and very beautiful, and then it just becomes, so, you know, an opportunity for service, just a wonderful opportunity. I've never resented anything I've been asked to do in the order, except for, and I will share this, you know, for years, you know, at the gathering, Philip would go through this whole thing about, you know, and here we have Penny doing Touchstone, wonderful, which is wonderful. Penny does a fantastic job, and Susan Jones, tutor coordinator, and Dave running the office, and Steph, and he'd mention everybody except for me. And I thought, well, that doesn't really matter. You know, I can be humble and invisible, and, you know, but it did matter, really. Yeah. And I said to him one day, I said, Philip, I said, you never mention me. And you know how quick-witted and quick-thinking Philip is. He just came out with this, you know, this flannel, really. He said, well, Adrian, he said, I like it. He said, I do apologise. He said, you know, you're right. He said, I should mention you do sterling work in that role in the press liaison. He said, but you're like a really good marriage. He said, you're never any trouble. You just get on with it. So I don't really think to kind of to mention you, because there's never any problems. And I'm thinking, Philip, you're waffling. And
absolutely, because you think of all the other problems, all the other great service providers, certain people.
And then the following year, he overdid it and really made me feel him. And we have a great press liaison officer, and I felt really embarrassed then.
Oh God,
it's all been a joy. It's been an absolute bloody joy, all of it. And you know, I like to think I've met some great people in my time. Philip and Steph were up there, Ronald, Dave, yourself, JJ. You know, the list is endless. And you know, Susan Jones, Susan Hensler, you know, Penny and Arthur. You know, a myriad of different beautiful souls that have brought light and life. Keith and Fran, you know, just endless people that have given to me. And you know, Elaine and Garth, you know, they give Wild Ways. We have these beautiful camps there. They give their land, and it's just lovely. I mean, I'm so blessed to have these people in my life, and it could be oh so different, really, you know. And I do believe that our destinies sometimes hang on one decision, you know, and you know, if we have a soul longing, we have to seek it, you know, we have to follow it, because everything around me at one point in time was trying to make me not follow my soul calling, and I, you know, I had to push through and pay the price for that, in pain, in change, in transformation, in letting go of lots of things that, you know, I thought would be in my life forever. You know, there's a little poem that I used this earlier on with a client, and it's still on my desk, and it says, how often we wish for another chance to make a fresh beginning, a chance to blot out our mistakes and change failure into winning. It does not take a new day to make a brand new start. It only takes a deep desire to try with all our heart, to live a little better, and to always be forgiving and to add a little sunshine to the world in which we're living. So never give up in despair and think that you are through, for there's always a tomorrow and the hope of starting new. It's just simple. It's just simple and beautiful. You know, each day at sunrise, our souls are born again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose having that philosophy allows you to start afresh. You know, that whatever didn't go well yesterday can start again, rather than getting stuck
Yeah.
into all the failures or all the negativity. I think it's just lovely to be able to say, okay, I can step forward, like children do when they're learning to walk. You know,
Yeah.
they take a step, fall, get up, and
Move on.
and just pushed to doing that.
Push on. Push on.
And also to learning a language, to, you know, acquiring language, you know, speaking words and my do it and mispronouncing, and then just keep going until they acquire it.
And I think, you know, OBOD represents, I've been a member of AA for some considerable years now, and that's my own experience. I don't speak for AA, but there was a book called The Language of the Heart, and I think that's what OBOD is. It's the language of the heart. You know, we connect through our hearts, and there's a lot of intellectual talking and acting out and other stuff, and that's important, of course it is, because we all need to strive to educate ourselves and continue to learn. But, you know, the thing that I think unifies us all is that, you know, our hearts recognize each other.
Yeah.
You know, and that, you know, that for me is the most important thing of all.
It's that, and I've experienced it in other places as well, that you meet somebody who's from a completely different background, culture, and there's that recognition, and I know you from somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that within the order. You know, it's that soul connection, and it is so beautiful.
I have to say though, with Susan Jones, I did query one time why I was tutoring a significantly large amount of American prisoners, and Susan just replied, "Well, who better, Adrian?" And that was a privilege. And I'll tell you a little thing you said about being grateful. You know, I had a tutee, and through really no fault of his own, he was 17 and he went out with his brother. And, you know, his brother said, "Come out with me tonight." And they ended up in some drug deal that went wrong. There was a shootout between gangs. Some people got killed. He was arrested. You know, because he was there, he was charged with murder, even though he didn't have a clue what was going on, really. He just got caught up in all of this. And he ended up getting a long prison sentence. He lost the plot when he was in there, and he was being bullied by a prison guard who he struck. And then he ended up going into solitary confinement. And he'd been in solitary confinement for 2 years when I was speaking to him. So he hadn't been in the company of anyone else for 2 years. And he wrote to me, he was doing the OBOD course, and he wrote to me because he was working with the elements. And he asked me if I'd write to the prison governor to see if he could have a cup of soil brought to his cell so he could work with the element of earth. And he wrote me this letter describing his experiences of smelling the earth, tasting the earth, sleeping with the earth in his hand close to his heart. And do you know what? I came home from work. I hadn't had a particularly brilliant day. I was probably feeling a bit grumpy, and I read that, and you know, and it was pouring down with rain, and I thought, I can do whatever I want on the earth, anytime I want. And I'll tell you what I did. There was a puddle in my lawn, and I went out and it was full. This puddle was full, and I whipped up all the mud, and I took all my clothes off and led in this puddle in my back garden. Unfortunately, my wife came home early from work and saw me through the window. I think that was one of the things that kind of brought our divorce forward by a few years. You know, the fact of spotting me naked in the garden in the middle of the afternoon, led in a puddle. But I did that, and you know, at the time I was doing that, I was thinking of this guy and praying for him. You know, because, you know, his absolute joy of having that cup of soil, you know, and you know, I can go out and I can touch trees and I can touch,
Yeah.
you know, touch the stars, you know, do what I want. And, you know, there's some people suffering that they don't get that. And, you know, you know, the simple things in life are the ones that are most profound, and we forget that.
Yeah.
You know, we just forget that.
Wow. Yes, I remember reading something about somebody who'd been a political prisoner and in solitary confinement. And the one lifeline they had a tiny window high up, but they were able to look out. And there was one tree in the distance. And that was the anchor for that person, that lifeline to, that kept that person sane. That, yes, I can see a bit of nature. So, yeah. Gabriella Luna, hello, lovely people. Good crack tonight. Thank you for reminding us to laugh, smile, and follow our hearts. Thank you both for all you do for us. Adrian, when you were in Sweden and Eimear was in Germany with Peeps, we ended up on our pilgrimage from the East Coast to be in Stanton Drew. Lucky we showed up. They were desperate for people to take part in the ritual, and we were delighted. Suddenly, to be in the midst of ritual, Ronald Hutton to my right and hundreds of people on.
Yeah, wonderful.
Just lovely, just
That
lovely.
was meant to be.
What concern do you have about the modern world after all your years of experience here and now where we are today?
Wow. I mean, that's quite an evocative question, isn't it? And you know, there's a whole bunch of mazes one could travel down with that. I try to have faith that there's an intelligence greater than ours at work that will come right in the end. Whether or not that means that we continue in the form we're in at the moment or not, I really don't know. But my own beliefs are that we're attached to a higher consciousness, so that we're just living out this experience at the moment. You know, we all know we're in dire straits. You know, the world's a funny place at the moment, and I have to not go there because it takes away from the fact, you know, that I try to live my best life every day. So I don't want to be in fear, but you know, I do have concerns about the world that my grandchildren are growing up in, of course.
Yep.
It would be naive not to. Um, you know, you know, the whole plastic in the seas, plastic in the waters. We know it's tragic, really. I mean, it's like, you know, humanity's been sleepwalking to some kind of catastrophic ending for us as the way we live at the moment. It's not sustainable. You know, we've overpopulated the planet. You know, the finite resources of Mother Earth aren't sufficient to keep us all going. So, you know, there has to be some committed, conscious, collaborative ideal of reducing the amount of people we have on the planet by some kind of agreed, conscientious, collective planning, not to be forced or coerced or any kind of fascistic kind of overview, but for people to just say, I'm going to have one child, or, you know, and let's bring this population down so that we can manage these resources better. Let's look for different ways. Let's look at, you know, let's make all of our plates and cups out of hemp, and, you know, let's start reforesting. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
some of the most profound experiences I've had in my druidry have been planting trees.
Yep.
You know, and it is simple, but you know, I've been very blessed that I've been able to plant trees at Wild Ways and other lots of other places. You know, I grew lots of trees. There's some growing by the side of my house. There's some ash trees and some oak and quite a lot of other trees that, you know, I planted 20 years ago, and the ash is huge now. You know, it's like,
Beautiful.
you know, and now I'm worried it's going to fall over and go through the roof of my house. But you know, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not going to do anything about it. It can stay there. I'll just deny to the insurance company that I was the one that planted it. They got more money than me. But you know, little things. All we can do is the little things. Eimear, pray, hope, do our own little thing. You know, it's the little stone in the pond. You know, the ripples spread out. If we all start, you know, individually, each of us, lead the best life we can, as conscientious as we can. I'm not perfect, and I know that. I could really up my game, and I've been aware, more and more aware lately that, instead of the amount of plastic being reduced, more and more things that, I would normally buy are in plastic. And, when I stay at Joe's, I stayed in Hampshire for the lockdown. Joe always goes and buys her stuff at the local butchers now. And, so, it doesn't have to be wrapped in cellophane or,
That's right.
So, little things like that, if we all did a little bit, and, and we got to hope for a greener future for our children, because they will hold us accountable.
Yes, indeed.
They will hold us accountable for all of this.
There are another comments. Poppy says, I don't believe we're overpopulated. Rather, we believe that what we've been told by whoever, that's one point. And then Gabriella says, personally, I consider human cruelty, lack of kindness, victim vibe, shame, guilt, and power struggles harder to solve than ecological issues. I mean, it's an interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
She says, if you want to fix something, look at yourself first.
Yeah.
Humans as a tribe could do that exercise. And then she says, look at our beautiful earth, who is enough for so many beings to live on her. The problem is how we treat her. Now, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I know the one-child policy didn't really work in China. So it
didn't work in China. And, who knows? I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I don't claim to have the answers. But, I do know that, the way we've overfished the seas, it's not sustainable. There was I can't remember the name of the guys. There was a law that decreased that it's the power of 10 or something, that, nature in the seas, if you have 10 whales, there has to be, 10 times more of the fish that the whales eat, and 10 times more of the fish that the fish eat that the whales eat. And it goes right down to billions of plankton and krill. And that's been disrupted by us.
That's right.
We can't deny it. We have done it. And, we can get caught up in this huge self-flagellation about it all and wear sackcloth and ashes forever and a day, or we can start to make some changes. And I can see that, with Extinction Rebellion, there's an awareness now, and it's not going to go away. There's an awareness that we have to change. And I think if people continue to harass the politicians to a point where, they've got nowhere else to go except for to change, then who knows? And science is an amazing thing. They may suddenly come up with some huge scientific breakthrough that, can start to recollect all the plastic from everywhere and make some use of it. Who knows?
They have found recognizing fungi that can eat plastic.
I saw that. Yeah.
I think, we've underestimated, and I think people are now recognizing the power of mushrooms and the mycelial pathways and how, they save forests, us, all of that. I actually bought myself a lion's mane mushroom kit. Actually, it came from Bristol.
Did it? Okay.
So you get a box with a medium, and there's the mycelium in it, and then there's a little window that you take out of the cardboard box, and a little window you cut, a little X, and you just moisten it with a spray bottle every day. And this fungus is coming out, this lion's mane. It's white and it looks like a lion's mane, and it absolutely tastes wonderful. And it's in my kitchen table, and I'm growing mushrooms, and and I know there's medicinal qualities, but also just nutritional. It's just magic.
I've recently been taking lion's mane because I've had sciatica for 4.5 months, which has been like excruciatingly challenging. It's all there in nature, isn't it? I've had the best, I've been taking the and also cherry to sleep at night because it's full of melatonin.
Yeah.
The lion's mane. Yeah. If anybody out there hasn't seen the film Fantastic Fungi,
I saw it. That's what got me. That's why I said I'm going to grow my lion's mane.
It's a must. I cried when I was in the tattoo parlor at the time being tattooed when I watched it for the first time, and it was amazing. Like, you know, both me and the tattoo guy were both crying at the end of the film. The secret is that the mushrooms are more intelligent than us.
That's right.
You know, so it was wonderful. It was a real moment.
So it's yeah, probably says where I get the mushroom. I think it's called upcycle mushrooms. If you Google Lion's Mane, and it's a company in Bristol make the kits. It just comes in a cardboard box, and you leave it. Everything stays in the box, and then it just comes out through a little window. And so I'm going away in my van for the weekend, so I have to take my mushrooms with me.
Make sure you don't get arrested.
Yeah, because I have to keep smoking, and so maybe there might be some ready to eat on Sunday. I don't know. It's really exciting.
Wonderful. I'm going to get one.
John says, I've grown a type of mushrooms and they end up making me spend a night as a cat. Oh, I don't know what you're doing as a cat. You could be fighting. You could be hunting mice and rats, or I don't know. No, I didn't. Gunter asked, did we have some fungus tonight? No, I didn't. Actually, we've been quite high, but I've been drinking just spiced tea, cinnamon tea. So that's just anyway. So it's been an absolute joy talking to you.
Forgot my name there. It's the mushrooms, guys. They've got them.
It's the mushrooms. My final question is two parts. You know, what's your favorite season and what's your favorite festival in the wheel of the year?
Okay, my favorite season is probably spring. If I'm honest, I'm very biased towards spring. I love it when all that new life comes out up to Beltane. I'm very blessed. We got wonderful woodlands around where I live, and also I get to go to Wild Ways, and for the Beltane camp, or for Immalt camp even. Immalt camp is full of just everywhere, just beautiful life coming back up with the anemones and the snowdrops, and it's just lovely. And there's a Vesica Pisces around an oak tree which comes up in snowdrops.
Wow.
And then the woods are full of bluebells, and last year I loved going out with Joe, and we harvested lots of wild garlic for Joe to make medicine and potions and lotions, but we made lots of garlic pesto, and I love that time of the year. I love the hawthorn coming out, and that's early summer. Then we're into early summer. That time when the green is kind of, I don't know what the word is. It's almost like an emerald green.
That's right. I know it. Yeah.
Before it goes darker as the season wears on, but that freshness, the newness of the green, I love all of that. And my favorite festival, I'd be hard pushed to not say that I love them all. When I was doing a ritual at Stanton Drew last year, the year before, just before COVID, and a lady came up to me and she said, "I'd like to thank you for putting this on." She said, I'm not a pagan. She said, I'm not actually anything. She said, but I've been coming out here for 2 years now. And she said, having one of your rituals to look forward to every couple of months has cured my depression. And I just thought, wow. Because she always had something to look forward to. And we're so blessed because, we've got Immalt, we've got winter solstice coming out of the darkness. New life, new birth, new hope. The Mabon is born, and then we go into Immalt, and the first fetal stirrings of Mother Earth and the buds on the trees, and then we've got spring equinox, and it's all starting to happen, and we're tipping into the light, and it's all really exciting. And Beltane, and if you get the opportunity, making love in the woods, or Not so much of that now I'm older, unfortunately, but we have had our moments.
Well, Ronald said that didn't happen. He said because it had been too cold. And I thought, you can generate a lot of heat, Ronald, at any time of the year.
Yeah, but we're working with our time frame anyway, not 2,000 years ago. And then you've got summer solstice, the height of the year, the sacrifice of the sun as he gives up his throne at the height of his power to the Holly King, and that lesson in sacrifice for the good of the land.
Surrender.
Yeah, and then Lunasa, Festival of Lu, the sun god, thank you for all these bounteous harvests, and then autumn equinox and the berries and the richness as the colours start to change, and this year I've had a fantastic Samhain. I went to quite a few different ceremonies, and they were all different. I'm a Druid, but I'm also a Wiccan. And I followed a Wiccan path alongside of my Druidry for 20 years, and I wouldn't say everybody's got to do that, but it worked for me, and that's been lovely. And so I went to Wiccan ceremonies and Druid ceremonies, and I run chanting evenings at the Goddess Temple in Bristol, and it's nice to see Goddess temples springing up all across the land to honour the divine Goddess and Mother Earth. So there is a shift in consciousness. And here we are now, looking forward again, looking at we're in that time of the hermit, and it's like we're walking on the peat bogs, which contain the bodies of our ancestors. So as we're walking across it, they're looking up at us, and they're saying, you have a responsibility to keep moving forward, we're looking to you now, to do what's right. And, and one day we'll be the ancestors looking up. But that's okay, because what does the wheel of the year show us? That, again, it midwinter, at solstice, the sun will be born again. So that's eternal life. In the midst of death, there is life. So, and that's what I believe. So, I love all the seasons passionately. So, but I used to, that's an interesting thing. I was diagnosed, at one point in time, mind you, I didn't always tell the truth to the various people I was talking to. And I was talking to a psychiatrist who said, and I was just a miserable sod around that time. I was drinking too much and doing too many naughty things, and it all caught up with me. And so I ended up going to see this psychiatrist, and he said, I think you're suffering from seasonal adjustment disorder. And I said, oh, I think I probably am. And he said, right. He said, I'm writing you out a prescription. You have to go to Southampton Hospital every fortnight and lie under a light box. Well, there was absolutely no way I could get from Bristol to Southampton every other week to lie under any kind of box, let alone a light box. So I did buy something off from somewhere where I put my hand in a light box instead. And I thought, well, that'd do. But I came into Druidry, and I don't have seasonal adjustment disorder. I didn't like the darkness or the starkness of winter. It always felt alien and sad, and like there was. But once Druidry taught me to appreciate the beauty in every season, to look for the beauty in every season. I think, the trees without their leaves, on the horizon in their naked beauty, that's as evocative as when they're clad in their beautiful greenery. So I think it's about perspective, and it's also about, I think Marcel Proust said, it's not about changing your horizon, it's about getting a new pair of glasses so you can actually see the horizon you've got. Or there was another saying that somebody told me years ago, don't look at the rubbish by the side of the road, look beyond the rubbish for the beauty that's beyond it. And and there is beauty in everything, and in all seasons, and in all people, if we can just look for that.
That's right. There's something about, I find the transition into the dark time of the year hard, but once I pass the autumn equinox, I'm fine. Yeah. I like this. I like each time of the year, but there's that thing about surrender to this time.
Yeah.
6 weeks between each of the festivals, or 6 plus maybe. And that it's like, everything changes, and that it's surrendering to this moment, and it will come to the next one, and so on and so forth, and we keep coming around. And so Poppy says, Druja gives a sense of order along with the earth. It does, because it's because each festival, you know, it recognizes what's happening in the landscape, and we can see it out there. You know, it's tangible, and I think we're very, very lucky to be able to do that.
And Druidry also, I think for me, it taught me to, what I see out there, I can bring in here. You know, it's like taking it inwards, so that over time, your view changes in accordance with, you know, what your heart feels.
That's right. Salve has a question for you. Have you ever been officially diagnosed with the condition of wisdom? Thank you for giving so much of your heart, humble, empowering words, and all that you give to the service of others. So that's wonderful. Adrian, this has been an absolutely wonderful chat. There's been great comments. People have really, really enjoyed it. You've been an absolutely wonderful guest, and I thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
And it's just been a great joy. And this is the one I've laughed the most at. So
laughter's very healing.
Oh, it is.
Lots of endorphins. So yeah, bless you, and thank you for all you do, Eimear, and thank you for, you know, becoming our new chief, you know, with all the scariness involved in that. So, you know, it's wonderful service, and you know, we said at the time, we'll support you in any way we can,
and I know you have.
We can.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bless you.
Great. So I'm going to turn you off, but you stay there, because we're going to look at the comments afterwards, because there's so many we haven't got to read all of them or comment on them. So I'm just going to, you can say goodnight to everybody now, and then I'll switch you off.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here, and many blessings, love, and yeah, be kind, be good, be the best people you can be. Lots of love from me. Bye. How weird.
Well, listen, thank you all so much for your comments. And yes, he was an absolutely great guest. So I'm actually kind of still giggly from that fireside chat. And we will look at the comments. And I know we didn't get to answer some, and I know some of you wanted references to the first poem, but I get Adrian to put that in. I think that person asked for it, is on Facebook, to put it into the chat. And so I look forward to seeing you next week. And we will be having an online winter gathering on the 18th of December. So online, and there will be a notice going out about that going forward. But I look forward to seeing you next week, where I'll be and introduce you to another guest. So until then, have a really good weekend, be safe, and enjoy the rest of your day or night. And until we meet again, slán go fóill.